How are you all? Today we're going to reveal a secret regarding dinosaurs. When the movie Jurassic Park was released, there was quite a sensation about this peculiar creature called dinosaur. And people wonder if there's a possibility for dinosaur to come back. The truth is yes. And also there's another truth. It did not exist in the past 5,000 years. So it should have surely existed before that. So if it existed before that, it obviously would exist again now. For that you need to know the spiritual secret which I'm going to reveal shortly. And before that, I need to remember that dragon, as mentioned in some religious scriptures, so it looks as if it's an imaginary creature, but it is mainly for punishing people. So that's why they have shown that very big dragons with they just spit fire from their mouth. So this dinosaur could be that dragon, and that is what we are going to prove using religious scriptures, because science cannot go beyond a limit. So science to some extent has proved that it did exist once, but they just do not know when. Though they give some amount of time, but that need not be the accurate timestamp. And they have no idea whether it could be revived, because science thinks there are many species that has been wiped out from the earth, but the truth is actually contrary to that. You will get idea of how true it's going to be by getting yourself familiar with the direct knowledge given by God. God says there is a 5,000 year time cycle which just repeats accurately. So this 5,000 year time cycle is called a kalpa, and the first half of this kalpa is heaven and the last half is hell. So whatever happens in one kalpa, that keeps repeating kalpa after kalpa. To understand it very clearly, if you are watching this video now, it obviously means you have watched this 5,000 years back on the very same day, and you will be watching the same video after 5,000 years on this very same day. So this keeps on repeating without any end. Likewise, God says, so science says there was definitely dinosaur. So if it was there in any kalpa, it will definitely be there in this kalpa as well. But so far dinosaurs do not exist in this kalpa, because if they existed, it would obviously be surviving now also, because God says whenever something comes into being in one kalpa, it will never vanish until the destruction of the world. So but science just contradicts with this, but it won't happen. Either it will shift from one place to another, that's possible, but it will never get eradicated totally from this planet. That's totally impossible. So this is how it works. We souls, we reside in a place called Supreme Abode or Parandam. From here, souls enter this world, it takes a body. So after coming into the body, we reside right here in the forehead, in between the eyebrows, and that is why we have this habit of wearing bindis right here in India. So while it was heaven, when we first take birth in heaven, we will not be having any consciousness of this body. Instead, we were soul conscious, which means we would consider ourselves to be the souls that operate this body, and we would be considering souls to be entirely distinct from this body. So it is the soul that sees through the eyes, it is the soul that speaks through the mouth, it is the soul that listens through the ears. So we were aware of that for the first 2500 years, because of which we did not fall prey to lust, anger, greed, attachment, and so on. So that is why it was heaven. The heaven was filled with jewels made of diamond and gold. And moreover, the animals that were in heaven, they will all be kind to each other. Even humans will be playing with lions and tigers. So everything will be so kind because humans were kind. So whatever characters we possess, that's the kind of character animals would possess at that point of time. So when it becomes hell after the first 2500 years, we start forgetting that we are souls. Instead, we started to misconsider ourselves to be this perishable body, and we fall prey to the sensual pleasures. Thereby we fall prey to the vices like lust, greed, anger, attachment, and ego, because of which we started facing many troubles, both physically and naturally. So that is exactly when we started seeking out for God, and we started developing religions, and also started creating religious scriptures like Bible, Bhagavad Gita, and Quran. Despite that, our pain and sorrow, they just keep on increasing, because none of them said that it is by losing this soul consciousness that we start getting this pain and sufferings. So since these vices increase day by day, the sorrow that comes with it also increases day by day. So towards the end of this kalpa, that is towards the last 100 years of Kali Yuga, God himself comes from his abode. He enters an old man's body, and he says that he is also a soul just like us. The only difference between God and us is we souls take birth through a human womb. God doesn't enter a mother's womb. Instead, he directly enters an old man's body, and he names him Brahma, and he starts giving this knowledge, saying that this was heaven in the beginning, because God creates world as heaven, and he creates humans and deities in the beginning. So deities were nothing but the human beings with divine qualities, so they can also be called divine beings. But after the first half kalpa, we lose the divine characters and start developing devilish characters. That is why we made this earth into hell. So God says the heaven is going to come very shortly. Within the next 20 years, the Kali Yuga will get completely destroyed, and it will be totally converted into the next yuga called Satyuga, which is heaven. So of course, everybody living on this Kali Yuga, they will be destroyed, which means the body will be destroyed, but the souls, they are imperishable eternally, so they can never be destroyed. So what happens is, during the Third World War or during some natural calamities, all souls will eventually leave their bodies and enter the soul world back again. And before that, before leaving to its abode, it has to accumulate power directly from God. God Himself has come to teach us the method to accumulate the power that we once possessed in the beginning. So we have lost that power, which is why we have become slaves for lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. So to conquer lust, we need power. God is always filled with power, and the only way for us to accumulate that power is to constantly remember God as a point of light. We exist as a point of light in between our eyebrows. God exists in this Parandam. So this is actually the orange colored light world. So we can remember or visualize God as a point of light or as a tiny star shining in the golden red colored sky, because that's how this place looks like. And before that, we have to consider ourselves to be the souls and not this body. We have to bring consciousness to the fact that we are just imperishable souls. So it is the soul that operates this body. We have to constantly remind ourselves to become soul conscious. So the more soul conscious we become by connecting ourselves to God, the sins that we've been carrying from the past births for the last 2500 years while we were in hell, that will all be washed away or burnt away. So the more sins that we burn by connecting our mind with God, which is called Rajayogi basically, so the more we indulge ourselves in yoga, thereby washing away our sins, the more purer the soul becomes. So anyway, so it has to happen before the destruction of the world. So once it gets destroyed, all the souls will eventually live to its home called Parandam. So the more pure soul has become before leaving the body, more is the chance the soul comes soon in heaven and start enjoying the full heaven. If it has become only partly pure before its death, then it will come only in the middle of heaven. But the rule is, no matter whether soul descends from Parandam right in the beginning or in the middle or in the end of heaven, once it starts taking birth in earth, it will never go back until the destruction of the world that happens in the Kali Yuga. So till then they will definitely enter rebirth. They will take birth after birth. So that's the law. In whatever was there in heaven, they are definitely here. But the only difference is they would have lost its full power. For example, when we were in heaven, we were deities, we looked very beautiful, we were filled with the divine qualities. Moreover, we can make anything happen just by the power of our thought. We had that power, but we have lost everything now because we became slaves to these five vices called lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. So now to regain that power, we have to conquer these vices, and the only way for that is to remember God as much as possible. In case you wonder where I get this knowledge from, it is not mentioned in any religious scriptures. It is given directly by God now through Rajayogi meditation centers. If you are interested in knowing the centers so that you can get direct divine education directly from God, you can always leave a WhatsApp message in this number +919894671743, because that Rajayogi meditation centers is spread across the globe. It is in every nook and corner of the world. In heaven, whatever we see, whatever was there in heaven, it will definitely be in hell, because as I mentioned earlier, once it takes birth, it will never go back. It will be there till the end. So it applies both to human beings and all other living beings. In heaven, there were no mosquitoes, snakes, dogs, or anything that causes impurity or that causes pain or sorrow. That will never exist there. So it obviously means dogs, snakes, beetles, mosquitoes, all dangerous insects, reptiles, they all came into being only in the hell. So where were they till then? That's the secret. God doesn't reveal that, but that is how it works. So the more sin we commit, we need to be punished, right? So of course we are getting punished by natural calamities and humans, but still we will also be punished by these dangerous animals and insects. So that's how it works. But lion and tiger were there in heaven, but they were very kind there, so they didn't cause any harm. That is why in Hindu temples you will always see the deities accompanied by some kind of wild animals like lion, tiger, something. So if dinosaur came in this kalpa, it should have existed now, but it's not the case. So obviously it should have or else it should be living in ocean or somewhere that's beyond human interference, or else it will have to come only now, because the sins of humans have increased to a greater extent. So we all know, right? Especially the number one sin is lust, and people are becoming so addicted to lust nowadays. So obviously there will be a tremendous punishment for that. So it will come into being, but how? That's something we don't understand. Even nowadays we can understand that there are many new diseases that's been evolving. New and new microorganisms come into being. Nobody knows where they come from. And even in Bible, it is mentioned in the Old Testament that if you obey my orders, I'll be blessing you with this and this. But if you don't follow my orders, I'll be cursing you with dangerous insects in your kingdom, with beetles in your kingdom, with mosquitoes in your kingdom, with cockroaches. So without knowing the direct knowledge of God, when we read Bible, obviously we would be laughing. But what we didn't know was, before that they didn't exist in heaven. That's the reason. But we tend to think that they all exist all the time. No, they don't exist all the time. They come in the middle. So likewise, dinosaur will definitely come towards the end. So that is especially to punish us. So the punishment will be very severe, because we all have become addicted to eating non-vegetarian foods, which was beyond imagination 100 years back in India. But now we have changed. We have become slaves for the taste buds. So for that we will also be killed and eaten by those dinosaurs or something like that. Even humans tend to kill other humans and start eating it, because I heard people have already started eating humans in some places. What's the point of this spiritual video if there is no escape from dinosaurs or other natural calamities or diseases or from third world war, right? Yes, there is a way out. We can escape from that. That is, the more we think of God, more we remember God as a point of light, and listening to his murlis, that is the name given to the direct knowledge given by God, which is available in all Rajayogi meditation centers. If we start reading it daily and imbibing the divine qualities mentioned in the murli, and also by remembering God daily as a point of light, and also by considering ourselves to be the souls and not this body, we will have this strange sensation, trembling sensation here in the forehead, which means our sins are getting washed off. So the more we think of God, the more purer we become. So if we quickly become pure, then we can get out of this body and get back to Parandam before it's too late. So we have to reach that state. And also there are many other spiritual secrets to it. I'm not going much detail into that, but that's the only way to escape from that, because only when we have sins accumulated in our soul will there be any punishment of any kind. But if you have burnt your sin by remembering God, then it's not a rule that you will be punished. You will never be punished if you have no sin at all. So how can we realize that we are free of sin? So main sins, they consist of lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego. So when we burn these sins, we will no longer be committing those sins. We will no longer be having those sinful thoughts. So that's when we can confirm ourselves that we have burnt away our sins. So we have to remember God continuously, and we have to listen to the Murli, the direct teachings of God daily, and we have to churn the knowledge as much as possible. So that's the only way out. So if dinosaur is not going to come in the future, people wouldn't have discovered that at all. So it is a warning. So already natural calamities like earthquake, tsunami, they all happen in the past 100 years just to caution us. But if we still refuse to take it seriously, then we will have no way but to endure those punishments. So God comes here to rescue us from suffering punishment. But if you don't believe in this, then what can God do? So just start listening to God's Murli by going to the nearby Rajayogi meditation center. Then you will understand within 2 weeks that it is only God that speaks. So God comes only once. He gives the knowledge not to establish a religion but to establish a heaven. So this is the only way to enter heaven. This is the gateway to heaven this last 100 years. So God has been giving this teaching for the past 8 years, more than 8 years. So there's very little time left. So take this seriously and think of God as much as possible and escape all kinds of punishments, because we know how the world is getting worse and worse day by day. As mentioned in Bible, the judgment day, it doesn't happen anywhere out there, it happens right here. It is happening now. We can just look at the world, just look at the world news, just see the kind of suffering people are facing day to day in terms of poverty, in terms of war, many things like that. So please take it seriously and start listening to God's Murli as soon as possible. Om Shanti. Thanks for watching.